Hollywood is obsessed with pushing inclusivity into everything from making characters' only personality trait the fact that they're different to storylines that are supposed to be all around unique by pushing the same message most movies are now. And inclusivity is great when done correctly in films, but a new horror movie called They Slash Them just released, and it is getting roasted by critics and audiences alike, not even surpassing a 15% audience score on Rotten Tomatoes. I have a bunch of things to show off, but before we get into the topic at hand, if you enjoy the content that I create, please make sure to subscribe to the channel and hit the notification bell. Follow me on social media like Twitter or mine so that you can see when my content is posted. And of course, if you do really enjoy the videos and the live streams that I create, please consider becoming a Dark Titan via Patreon for just $1 a month, or support the channel via YouTube memberships. All of the links are in the description, and of course, I do really appreciate all of the support. So I wanted to start off with Rotten Tomatoes because it is getting raked across the coals. I wanted to show off some of the critic reviews first, and the critic score is also terrible. It is sitting at a 30% right now, and there are about 50 reviews. Now, the first one on the list is actually a positive. It's a 4 out of 5. And then you start scrolling down, and it is green, green, green. At first, I couldn't really tell what this movie was going to be because it seemed like such a parody of pronouns in a camp filled with LGBTQ individuals. And of course, Hollywood wouldn't want to kill off any characters like this in movies, yet it also seemed like it was taking itself a bit too seriously and it didn't have a comedy tag. And I think this is what killed this film because it didn't do well appealing to either group of people. It wasn't for people who want to make fun of pronouns and any type of individuals and make those jokes, but it also didn't appeal to the people who would want a very serious LGBTQ horror thriller film. It was very confusing. I mean, I watched the trailers a couple of months ago when they came out, and at that point, we didn't know what this movie was going to be, but now that it's out, people are very disappointed. Again, there's really no one who likes this movie. So, looking at just some of the critic reviews, a 1 out of 4. The promising concept plays out with an unbalanced ratio of 7% slasher horror and 93% soap opera about the inhumanity of gay conversion therapy, and it never brings the integrated premise to its full potential. Another 1 out of 4. To give you a brief description of what the critics are saying, they're saying that while the premise is perfectly fine and it seems like an okay general storyline, the acting is mediocre. It's not a scary film, okay? The horror tag only comes in at the last 15 minutes of the movie. It overall is just a very drab film, and the most exciting part about it is the name. I do think that They Slash Them is a pretty witty title for a slasher film. Unfortunately, it just seems like everything fell flat. I mean, even a outlet called Gay City News is canning this film. But audiences are also saying very similar things. The audience score is even worse at a 15%. This has to be one of the lowest rated films that's released this year. As you can see in the sea of reviews, they are all half stars, a couple of 1 and 2 stars, but nothing very positive. A half a star doesn't even pretend to be a horror movie. No suspense, no terror, just massive amounts of cringe, including a sing-along straight out of Glee. It's unfortunate that they didn't go into this actually trying to make this a comedy horror. It sounds like they did want to make it a very serious LGBTQ pronoun themed movie, and then as production continued, they just decided to go more in a comedic direction. I think because they knew that a straight up LGBTQ horror movie probably wasn't going to do that well, and even though this isn't going to theaters and it went straight on to Peacock, they still need people to show up and watch it. They still spent a significant amount of money on it. And as production continued, it just got more comedic. They never slapped the comedy tag on it because they never went full comedy with it. So it's just a very mixed experience that isn't making anyone happy. Horribly slow. I gave up an hour in and read the wiki page for the ending. People can't even be bothered with finishing this film. Honestly, I couldn't even finish it. No one wants this content, and if you're reading it thinking, yes, I do, you're lying to yourself. Twitter the movie, ouch. You have to be stupid to watch this. Now, I decided I hated myself and I was going to watch this film, and I regret it. Okay, I'm going to give you a spoiler alert in case you want to watch this yourself. I would not recommend you do because it is so bad, but I wanted to give you some of my general thoughts. Now, of course, it's a typical camp horror film where this group of characters each comes to the camp for different reasons. They meet, they talk, they start forming relationships, and then the horror element of the movie, and I say that very loosely, begins. Okay, they find dead bodies, they find out there's a killer on the loose. It's very straightforward storytelling, yet the characters are the most stereotypical characters you've seen in a movie about LGBTQ individuals. It is insulting. Then you find out at the end, the killer wants to simply close every conversion camp in existence, yet they're so bad. They just get caught and arrested, and then the group goes, well, that's done. Oh well, and go about their lives, and that's the end of the movie. The pacing for this film is awful. There's no good gruesome kills or horror. I know they try to get you with a few jump scares that do not work, in my opinion. The characters are bad. Overall, this is not a movie I would recommend people waste their time watching. It is one of the worst movies I've seen of the year, and the only other movie I think is still slightly worse is One Up, which is the Ruby Rose Gamergate comedy. Just overall, an abysmally terrible movie, and it deserves all of the half-star ratings that it's getting. When woke critics and fans are bashing a movie together, you know it's gotta be bad, because this is something that you would think the critics would eat up and absolutely adore. But if we go on over to social media, people are just absolutely roasting this film. People are saying things like the way that this movie could have been a camp queer horror film that actually fights back against phobia while also being a funny dark comedy horror flick. Like, you had a kick-ass title but a shitty movie. Person from They/Them movie holding a gun in a flamboyant way. This has to be one of the cringiest moments I have seen in a movie that isn't technically a comedy. This is just so bad. I don't know who created this, who decided that this movie was good enough to release, but I just can't believe that Kevin Bacon would sign up for a film like this, that he would be part of a movie that is just this bad. But like I've said, critics hate it, audiences hate it. I definitely don't think that it's getting a sequel, but that's all that I really had to discuss in this video. Let everyone know your thoughts in the comment section down below. If you enjoyed this and found it important and informative, please make sure to give it a like, share it, and subscribe to the channel. And of course, if you didn't, make sure to give it a dislike. I appreciate your support either way, but I will talk to you all again in the next video really soon.